Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about a film that I actually brought up when I was doing my top 10 favorite films of 2022 list. This was a film that I unfortunately was not able to get around to last year. It came out roughly around like Thanksgiving, Christmas time when my work schedule was insanely busy. But thankfully, I'm subscribed to HBO Max, and they have a way you could view this film for free with your subscription with them, and that is the film Empire of Light. Like I mentioned, this is a film that I was originally hoping to see before the end of the year, but never got around to it just due to how busy my schedule was and other films that I had wanted to see and all that other kind of stuff. So here we are. I'm going to review it for you today. But in Empire of Light, this is a recent Sam Mendes movie. He's done American Beauty and Road to Perdition and 007 Skyfall and 007 Spectre. So he's done quite a few big films. So this is his most recent movie. And it's about a woman that runs a movie theater during the early 1980s in the seaside town. And she's having this affair with this manager that she works with at this theater. But around this time this happens, she's also romantically intrigued by this newer employee that works for the theater. He kind of is a troublemaker at first, but he kind of settles down, he behaves himself. The two of them kind of have a little bit of a fling for a little while. And over the course of this movie, we kind of find out some of the medical conditions of this woman, some of her mental conditions as well, kind of how she's gone all this time without getting married, and why she lives by herself, and why she does have relationships, but they don't seem to last long, or they kind of end abruptly, or something bad happens to them. So the film explores all these ideas. The film also explores, because this movie does take place mostly in a movie theater, why preserving the cinema experience is important. I think the reason why Sam Mendes made the film around the time that he did is just because I'm sure the pandemic was still really strong around the time that this film was in production. And I'm sure he was trying to make the point of, we have to preserve cinemas, we have to make sure we keep them around as long as possible. Um, Certain films absolutely need to be seen in a theater. Being able to see it with an audience, being able to laugh with an audience, being able to be scared with an audience, all those things are important in preserving the cinema experience, because you're experiencing that story the same time those people are. More than likely, it's around the same time the film was first released, so it's kind of people's first initial reactions to things. And so the film kind of explores these ideas. It also explores the job of a projectionist and why their job is so important in a theater, why their job kind of it's the make or break point for that theater as far as how good or bad your cinema experience is going to be. It's all about figuring out the lighting and figuring out when to throw certain switches and all that kind of stuff. The film explores all these ideas. And over the course of this film, we get to follow this romantic life of this woman, all of her ups and downs, all the ups and downs she has with this newer employee, and kind of how this affair she had with this manager kind of goes south really, really badly, really quick, especially around the time she's starting a romance with somebody else. This all happens over the course of Empire of Light. But overall, guys, for being a film that I was hoping to see before my top 10 favorite films of 2022 list, I gotta say, this film was probably not going to be even an honorable mention for me. I thought it was just okay. Sam Mendes has made so many great films over the years that unfortunately I don't think Empire of Light is going to join that list. I think it's just going to be one of those Sam Mendes films that just kind of slips under the radar. People will remember it. I'll remember seeing it and everything like that. But it's just not a film I'm probably going to remember forever. It's just not a film where I'm going to probably want to come back to it 10 years from now and want to explore it again or anything like that. There's just a lot of problems with it. I'll talk about all my goods and bads with this movie here in a minute. But for the most part, this is a film that's really does have a lot of problems, really kind of lacks a focus, really kind of feels like it was trying to be two films at the same time, and some of those ideas don't really mash very well together. So let's go over some positives and negatives. The things that I liked about Empire of Light, why it's not a terrible movie, but also why it's not a great movie, and why ultimately I don't know if I would recommend seeing it. But overall, for my positives for this movie, you guys, it does occasionally depict the glory of the cinema experience. Like I said, it does show the importance of the projectionist and kind of why their job is so important for theaters. And like I said, being able to see something with a group of people, being able to laugh and be scared and feel a dramatic tension all at the same time with somebody else is really quite special when you're seeing a film in theaters. And like I said, the film does occasionally depict these things. There's even a scene where Olivia Colman, who's the main character of the movie, goes back to the theater late at night one day. She's so busy working the theater that she doesn't really get to see the films herself. And it does take place during the early 1980s, so this is around the time of the Blues Brothers and The Empire Strikes Back and other big films that were starting to slowly come out around that time. They became 80s classics for everybody else. And so she just kind of asks her, projectionist to just play any film for her, any film that's playing in that theater at that time, just because she hasn't really watched any films herself in a long time. Sits in the middle row, and she really starts to understand why people go to that theater so often and why it's so important to keep that cinema going and to keep that experience going for people, because it really is something special when you see a really great movie in the greatest way possible in a theater. And overall, I did feel invested in the Olivia Colman and this boyfriend that she has over the course of this movie. I felt invested in their journey. I felt invested in their relationship. I wanted her to get out of the whole Colin Firth affair thing, early on in the movie. Clearly, that was a very toxic relationship for the two of them. But I really wanted these two to be happy. I wanted to see these two go out to the beach and go out and do stuff and go out and dance and do stuff that just, people in relationships are happy doing with each other. So overall, the film did a good job helping me feel invested in these two characters. So that is one aspect of the film I'll give it credit for, is I did feel very invested in the journey of this man and this woman falling in love with each other. Roger Deakins did the cinematography of this film. He's done a lot of cinematography for other great films like Shawshank Redemption, and he won an Academy Award for Blade Runner 2049 with his cinematography in that. And he's done the cinematography for even Sam Mendes himself for 007 Skyfall. And I think he might have returned for Spectre. I'm not sure on that one. But he's a really great cinematographer. Once again, he does great cinematography work here. The man knows how to shoot a movie. The man knows how to frame a shot. He knows exactly what you need right when you need it. He's definitely one of those cinematographers that does not fail when framing a shot and getting all the information you need within the shots needs to happen. He's one of those guys where you can easily get that task done and make it look beautiful while he's doing it. I also like a lot of the scenery and set designs in this movie. That really is a very beautiful theater that they shot in. Whether it's a real theater or just something they shot on a soundstage, they really did a great job making sure that this theater was this really beautiful place to go to. I think it even said on the side of the theater they have ballroom dancing and other kind of events outside of movies that people can do outside of it. So this film really did a great job of making sure the set designs look great whenever Olivia Colman and the boyfriend were going out and doing stuff like at the beach and stuff. All the scenery, all the set design was also very beautiful. I think there's even a scene where they're watching fireworks on top of the theater and stuff like that. So very beautiful looking movie, very beautiful set designs. All that stuff was wonderful in the movie. But for my negatives of this movie, though, why I probably wouldn't recommend it ultimately is I did feel like Sam Mendes was trying to make two films at the same time. And I think at the end of the day, you have to choose one or the other. You have to choose if you're going to make a film about preserving the cinema experience, or you have to make a film about this woman falling in love with this new employee and how she has problems with relationships and she's starting to understand that. And I just don't, the two just don't mash very well. The two of them just don't blend very well. And I think that's ultimately, after seeing the film myself, why this film is not getting great reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it only has like a 44% or something like that. So not a lot of critics love the movie, unfortunately. And unfortunately, I can see why after seeing it myself. There's just a lot of ideas here that don't mesh well. Either you go full on dark, or you go full on romantic, or you go full on preserving the cinema experience, or you go full on, exploring this movie theater and why it's just so beautiful to project films that the way this theater does it. There's just a lot of ideas here where the two don't mesh very well. I don't know if Sam Mendes could have just made a film about how falling in love with somebody and falling in love with film are kind of one and the same thing, kind of, sort of. I don't know if just going that approach would have helped this film a lot more, because it just felt like there was two different films going at once. There's really no satisfactory on either one, because the romance side isn't completely explored and the film side of it isn't completely explored with this theater. So ultimately you get a film where it just doesn't really know what to do. It has these two big ideas, but it doesn't really know what to do with them. And ultimately, Colin Firth's character is just extremely unlikable. There's even a scene where he just kind of cracks in front of all the employees for just no reason. He's just out of selfishness. And there's just throughout this movie, I just want this character to go away. Colin Firth always plays characters that, for the most part, you like in the movies. This is the first character he's played where I just didn't like the guy at all. So whenever he shows up on screen, it's just like, oh god, this guy again. It's just a very unlikable character. I think Sam Mendes could have wrote him better because every time he walked on screen, I was just like, oh god, we got to deal with this guy again. Just a very unlikable character and just a very toxic character we have to endure over the course of this movie. And ultimately, the film doesn't really truly explore the whole preserving the cinema experience concept. Besides the things I just mentioned earlier, it really doesn't explore it that much. And like going back to like I was saying, it really felt like two films going on at the same time. I really wish Sam Mendes maybe could have just sat down with the co-writer, figure out, what exactly could this film be. I want to have this romance. I want to have this whole cinema experience thing. How can we blend the two together? And I just don't know if he ever asked or answered that question himself. And I think that's ultimately why the film suffers a lot. Is there's just all the stuff, all the things that got me intrigued to see this film with its concept. The whole preserving the cinema experience idea, it just isn't explored the way that it should be in this movie. And overall, I thought the first half of this film was extremely slow. It's just a very slow going movie. It really takes about halfway in to really kind of kick into gear of what it's really trying to do. I get that it's trying to show the life of this woman and what she's up to and what her life is like when the movie begins and stuff. But it's that first half of the film is extremely slow. I don't know whether they could just picked up speed, found something more interesting to do. But that first half is a very, very slow thing to get through. And overall, I think this film just doesn't have a point. Every film should have a point. I get it. Preserve the cinema experience. I completely agree with that message. But the whole thing with the romance thing, the film explores it spends a lot of time with that romance stuff, and there's just no point to it. There's just a lot of things where I just want to sit down with Sam Mendes and be like, well, what was the point of this movie? Was I trying to feel invested in preserving the cinema experience? Was I trying to feel invested in this romance? And if I wasn't supposed to feel invested in the romance, what does that have to do with the movie itself? The film just never answers that question, and it just kind of suffers as a result. But overall, I'm going to give Empire Light a 7.5 out of 10. I think there's good things about it. I think there's things in it that have potential to be really great. And like I said, Roger Deakins always does great with his cinematography. The set designs and scenery were beautiful in this movie with the whole seaside town. But there's a lot of things about this movie that are just not working for it. I can definitely see why Rotten Tomatoes was not so nice on this movie. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. It's okay. There's things about Empire of Light that are enjoyable, but for the most part, this was a very underwhelming experience. I think Sam Mendes could have done a better job with. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. See it with caution if you really are intrigued by the concept like I was, but go into this film knowing that it's not perfect and it's probably not going to be a film that you're going to want to rewatch over and over again. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. It's a middle of the road kind of movie for me.